Okay, guys, good morning. This is our brief Hinduism overview. This will help you better understand the reading on caste and society that you'll be reading about later today. Hopefully, you're using headphones to listen to this so you're not disturbing others. But this is just to give you a brief sense of the religion of Hinduism, because without it, a lot of aspects of this reading will be difficult to understand. I know I told you guys I was going to do this from my home, but life sort of got in the way, so I'm doing it in my office here, so we won't have any special guest appearances by my cat, William Howard Taft. 1,000 apologies. But anyway, a brief overview of Hinduism. This is the symbol of Hinduism. It's called the Om, and it's one that you'll see frequently associated with Hinduism. Let me hide that real quick. So let's get into it. So Hinduism is the main religion of India. And in case you don't know where India is, it is this orangish country here. Now, other countries also practice Hinduism, most notably Nepal. And Hindus, as people who practice Hinduism are called, are all over the world, especially in places like the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada, as many Indian immigrants have gone there. But India is the stronghold of Hinduism. As you can see, it is a relatively isolated place. But despite that, Hinduism is still the third largest religion in the world, which just goes to show how big of a country India is in terms of population. It has a lot of people, well over 1 billion people. And is also one of the world's oldest religions. Is also considered an Eastern religion. And when we say an Eastern religion, we mean a religion that does not come from the Western world. And in case you don't know what I mean by the Western world is basically everything from about Europe westward. Okay, so from about Europe on westward, except for parts of Africa. So the line is actually kind of like, if you follow the cursor, goes from here, kind of around Africa, and then on that way is eastward, and then that way is the western world. And we'll see that referred to a lot in history. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It was kind of arbitrarily made by Europeans and European descendants, but it's a phrase you will commonly hear. So I just want you guys to be aware of that. But anyway, to help us better understand Hinduism, we'll contrast it with the religion I imagine most of you are familiar with, at least to a degree, and that is Christianity. So when we look at the founders, Christianity has one single founder, and that is Jesus Christ. Without Jesus Christ, there is no Christianity. Okay, that is the founder of the religion. Obviously, there's the whole God piece and the relationship between God and Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, and we can get into the Trinity and its nature ad nauseum, but we're not going to because that's exhausting. Whereas Hinduism has no single founder. Hinduism was basically descended from various river songs and stories and that sort of thing that sort of evolved into a religion. So there really is no one single person we can credit with founding Hinduism. In terms of a number one God, that's kind of a strange concept to Christians because according to Christian religion, there are no other gods. In fact, it's in the Ten Commandments, you're not allowed to worship any other God besides God, or as he is called in the Hebrew Bible, Yahweh. However, in Hinduism, the number one God kind of depends on who you ask because Hinduism has many different gods. However, all those gods sort of make up one all-powerful, eternal, universal spirit, which sort of complicates things to us who are more familiar with the Christian, Judeo-Christian mindset of there is one God and only one God. In terms of a holy text, in Christianity, we have basically one. There's kind of two mixed into one in that there's the Old and New Testament, but there's basically one. In Hinduism, we have at least four. They are called the Vedas. There's the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Samaveda, and the Atharva Veda. They're very long, and depending on which aspect of Hinduism you adhere to, you may read one or a few, but usually not all. Hinduism is an interesting religion in that you can sort of cater it to what you want it to be. Hinduism can kind of be whatever you sort of want it to be. Whereas Christianity is a bit more, you have to be this way. You're supposed to follow these guidelines in order to be a good Christian. Whereas Hinduism is kind of more of a, yeah, man, do what you want. It's okay. Whereas in Christianity, there is a fairly comprehensive moral code in the Ten Commandments and the Gospels according to Jesus Christ, the founder. In Hinduism, there really is no single set of morals. There's different sets of morals, and depending on which sort of type of Hinduism you practice, you can kind of take it however you want. In terms of authority on earth, if you're a Roman Catholic, the central religious authority is the Pope, who is located in Rome, which is in within Italy. Whereas in Hinduism, there is no Pope of Hinduism. There is no central authority. Now, there are religious teachers. They're called gurus, but there is no one single all-powerful guru like there is a single all-powerful Pope who is sort of the leader of the Catholic world. In terms of prophets, there are numerous prophets in the Christian Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are four of the main ones. They are the ones who they are the ones who speak about Jesus Christ, and there's numerous ones from the Old Testament as well. However, in Hinduism, there is no concept of prophets because there is no sort of savior figure within Hinduism. That doesn't quite exists in the sense that it does with the Christian religion. So Hinduism can be frustrating for us to understand at times. But to understand Hinduism, you have to understand the concept of Brahman. And the Brahman is this eternal universal spirit that exists everywhere, though it cannot be defined. There are many gods in Hinduism, but all are a part of Brahman. Everything is a part of Brahman. You are a part of Brahman. I am a part of Brahman. Your desks are a part of Brahman. Everything is a part of Brahman. It's this sort of force that flows through everything. And if you ever watch Star Wars basically somewhat ripped off this concept of Brahman, of this eternal universal spirit that flows through everything, that sort of guides everything, though as mere mortal humans, we can't quite understand it, but everything is a part of that. And that is a key tenet of Hinduism and also a key tenet of Buddhism as well, but we'll not get into that at the moment. As a Hindu, cleanliness and purity are paramount, meaning they're very, very important. Many rituals involve water and cleanliness. In fact, if you're a Hindu, you're expected to bathe in the Ganges River, which is in the northern part of India. It's very similar, if you're a Christian, to the concept of baptism, this idea that you are washed in water, and through this ritual, you are made pure, you are made clean in the eyes of God, or in this case, in the eyes of Brahman and the Hindu deities. But it is a very, very important part of the religion, and there is a festival in which you'll see thousands and thousands and thousands of Hindus in India bathing in the river Ganges, just like these people are here. There are three main gods in Hinduism. Now, there are hundreds of other gods as well, but there are three main ones. And depending on where you live in India, where your family comes from, what your family does, you may only worship a few of these gods. You may ignore other ones, but you focus on a few in that sense. But there are three main ones. We have Brahma, who is the creator god. We have Vishnu, who is the preserver god. And we have Shiva, who is the destroyer god. And don't think of Shiva as evil because Shiva is the destroyer, because there's this whole other part of Hinduism which basically gets into this idea that these are all part of the life cycle. So you are born, you live, and you die. But they believe it's a cycle. It's not a line. It's a cycle. It kind of keeps going. And some of you may be wondering, well, what about that god with the elephant head? I won't forget about Ganesha. Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, and Ganesha is a popular god because people like to call upon Ganesha to remove various obstacles that may keep them from getting what they want to achieve in life or what they want to acquire in life. So that's the one that comes there. And it's an elephant because elephants are strong and they're used as sort of draft animals, meaning they're used as animals that drag things out of the way or remove things or help you get things where you want them going. So that's why Ganesha is a very popular god in Hinduism. But the reason I bring up the cycles is that reincarnation is a huge part of Hinduism. Reincarnation is the belief that after you die, you are made flesh again. In fact, the word reincarnate, for those of you that speak Spanish, think of the word carne, which means flesh, meat. You are made flesh again. So after you die, you become a new living being, which is why Shiva the Destroyer is not seen as totally bad, because it's just a part of the cycle. And Hindus believe that when you die, you are born as a new being. However, what you are born as is determined by two things: your dharma and your karma. Okay, so you could be reborn as another human being. If you were born poor, you may be reborn as someone rich. If you were born as a human being, you may be reborn as a different animal, as a different plant. And so this idea that your loved ones and your ancestors could be alive through the entire world around you. So if you have a grandparent that passed away, they may be alive again, but in the form of a cat or a dog. And though it may sound somewhat absurd to us living in the Western world, this is a very commonly believed thing within the Eastern world, and it's something they take very seriously. So your dharma are your duties, rules, and responsibilities in your life, the way you are supposed to live. Okay, so if you are a cat, you're supposed to live the way a cat is supposed to live. You chase small rodents, you eat them, you take naps, you do cat things. That's your job. And if you're a good cat, you have fulfilled your karma, and your karma is your reward or punishment in terms of how well you fulfilled your dharma. If you were a good cat and you lived a good cat life, you may come back in the next life as a human. Or if you were a human, then you may come back in the next life as something even better. And actually, to Hindus, one of the best animals you can come back as is a cow. Cows are seen as sacred in Hinduism, which is why if you go to Indian restaurants, you will not see beef on the menu. They don't eat beef. They don't eat cows because cows are sacred. To them, eating a cow is just as gross and disgusting as eating a dog or a cat is to us. When they see us eating beef, they think it's just absolutely filthy and gross. However, a Hindu's goal in life is to achieve moksha, which is the ultimate state of existence. It's where after you die, you are no longer reborn, but you transcend the cycle of rebirth and you become one with the eternal universal spirit. You become sort of this force that sort of flows around the universe and having a part of everything. You become one with Brahman. You are basically everywhere and anywhere at the same time. You almost are like a godlike force by achieving moksha. It's very similar to the Buddhist concept of nirvana, because Buddhism and Hinduism have a whole lot of parallels within them. And just sort of think of this sort of puts it into overly simplified views, but this sort of angelic guy here that I'm circling, he has achieved moksha, but he wouldn't take the form of an angel because that is too definitive. He would just be more of this invisible but omnipresent force that is just taking part in everything. And that gets into caste, this idea of reincarnation and dharma and karma. The class that you are born into, your caste, is your dharma. That is what you are supposed to do. And there are four main ones. There's different ones in between, but there's four main ones. At the top are Brahmins, who are priests and teachers. They are like the head of the body of Hinduism. Next, we have Kshatriyas. They are warriors and rulers. They are the arms. They make things happen, the arms and the hands. They do the fighting. They do the creating and making of society. So they're like politicians, warriors, policemen, that sort of thing. Underneath the Kshatriyas are the Vaishyas. They are the farmers, they are the traders, and they are the merchants. They are kind of the legs. Okay, they sort of get things where they need to go. Interestingly enough, a lot of times the Vaishyas can be the wealthiest members of Hindu society because they are the merchants, they're the business people, and they're also the lawyers and doctors too. They're the people with skilled trades and that sort of thing. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that caste is not necessarily based on your family's wealth or education. It's based on what your parents do and what your family does, what your family situation is. So notice that priests and teachers are at the top, even though they may not make the most, but their positions are seen as the most important to society. They make the society smarter and more morally sound. That's the idea. Then at the bottom of caste, and I'll get to the Dalits in a second, are the Shudras. Those are the laborers. They are the feet of the body of Hinduism. They help provide support for everything else because the laborers, without people doing the work, nothing happens. So you have to have people doing the work. Otherwise, you have no feet to stand on. So priests and teachers are the head. Warriors and rulers are the arms. Vaishyas, the farmers, laborers, and skilled workers are the trunk, the legs, and then the feet are the laborers, the unskilled laborers. Now, outside of this body, we have the Dalits, the outcasts, and that's what the main character of your story is. He is a Dalit. He had no choice in this matter. He was given this title at birth because that's what his parents were. And that is where he has to live his entire life. And it is according to the rules of Hinduism that you have to abide by your dharma, and you are not required to do anything outside of your dharma, nor are you allowed to do anything outside of your dharma. And you're also required to stay within your caste. So if you're a Brahmin, you're expected to only associate for the most part with Brahmin. You're supposed to only marry with Brahmins. You're supposed to only be friends with Brahmins. And you're certainly supposed to stay away from Dalits or outcasts. If you are around outcasts, that could be very, very bad for you as a Hindu. You could be declared unclean, and it could sort of mess up your karma. You could get punished in the next life for excessively associating with Dalits. And you have to realize without this concept of reincarnation, caste doesn't exist. And this is very different from our system of social hierarchy because we believe that you can move up and down the social ladder. Okay, we believe that if you're born, say, a laborer in American society, if you go to school and you're very, very capable at what you do, you can go up and be a business person or a teacher or a priest or a president or something like that. But Hindus don't believe that. They believe that if you were born a laborer, you're supposed to live your whole life as a laborer. Even if you're the most brilliant person in the world, you're supposed to be a laborer. And if you're a bad laborer, you'll probably be reborn as something worse than a laborer. You might be reborn as like a cockroach or a dung beetle or something like that. And it's this idea of reincarnation that makes this whole system stay the way it is. Without the belief in reincarnation, people probably wouldn't accept a life of being just a lowly laborer. But they often cling to this idea that if I'm a good laborer and I fulfill this lifetime of labor, I will be reborn as something better. And that's the way it'll work. Religion reinforces this very strict hierarchy of class in which you can't really move up and down. And yes, if you are wondering if the people at the top are the ones who often keep this idea going, you're absolutely right. When you have priests and teachers teaching this idea of Hinduism, it makes sense because they like it because they're at the top. They wouldn't want people to start thinking, well, I can move up and down. They want to maintain this sort of religiously based system of social hierarchy in which you can't move up and down, which makes sense because they're at the top. Which gets us to the Dalits, the outcasts. They are considered to be outside of the caste system. They're not even a part of society. In many instances throughout Indian history, they had to wear bells before they went in the city so people knew that they were coming so that they could avoid them. A lot of times they weren't even allowed into the cities because people didn't want to be around them because they were seen as unclean. They were basically completely cast out of societies. On a legal basis. Oftentimes they're relegated to the worst and most disgusting jobs in society, cleaning latrines, skinning animals, or cleaning manure in the fields, basically dealing with the grossest, smelliest parts of society. And they were frequent targets for conversion, interestingly enough. And it makes sense that they were targets for conversion because they're at the lowest points of society. So when you have Christian missionaries, Buddhist missionaries, as well as Islamic missionaries, missionaries, outcasts are often ready to take up a different religion because it makes sense. Why would you want to be a part of a religion that has you cleaning up poop all the time when you could maybe join a different religion and move up the social ladder? So you will see outcasts often converting to a different religion. Not all the time, but a lot of times. Um, and the caste system is technically illegal in India. However, caste discrimination still exists. Um, and it's a complicated issue in that sometimes we see caste being perpetuated by the government, but it also has programs that sort of try to get rid of caste, and that they give outcasts or and people who are in low positions within the caste system certain preferential treatments in order to advance in society. So hopefully that gave you guys a little bit better sense of how the caste system works. Good luck with the reading today. We will discuss the caste system in Hinduism as well as the reading tomorrow on Friday. But be nice for the sub and have a good day, guys.